Have you ever felt completely overwhelmed one day, but the next day, you're not even sure why you were so upset? That's called emotional amnesia. And this is a common experience for those with BPD or those that are along that BPD spectrum. So you could have some BPD traits, even some aspects of BPD. So individuals experiencing that emotional amnesia, often they feel like their feelings vanish, or they could even seem fake once your mood changes. And if you've experienced this video is really going to be helpful because we're going to explain why this happens, how it affects your relationships and self-trust, and what you can do to stay connected to what's real, even when your emotions are shifting. So first, let's talk about, was it even real? If you've ever felt something so deeply one day, and then you couldn't even explain it the next day, you're not alone in that experience. A lot of people have felt that. And emotional amnesia, this is really common for individuals with BPD because it's tied to that mood instability. And the goal here is to help you stop invalidating yourself and understand what's happening neurologically and emotionally. And building that insight is so critical because it helps you identify those symptoms, those core content activations. And if you're not sure what core content is, I talk about that in a lot of my other videos. It's this internal component. Could be fear of abandonment, could be rejection sensitivity, could be emptiness, whatever your specific core content areas are. But when those get activated, it just drives this mood instability in the case that we're talking about here, but also your other BPD traits or associated beliefs, behaviors, and patterns that tend to be maladaptive. And when we look at emotional amnesia with a BPD lens or even an intensive emotional lens, we could define it as feelings lose their intensity or seem unreal once the mood passes. So that means that a lot of your perception and feeling in the moment is so intense because you feel like, I feel this way, I'm going to feel this way forever. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. You're overwhelmed. And then that moment ends, or the intensity ends, and then it feels like almost like you've shed a skin, so to speak, and you just leave it behind you and you just go on and just keep on going until it happens again. And we see that those BPD traits tends to be associated with is emotional instability, identity confusion, and intense interpersonal reactions. And you may have that in your relationships because at that moment, it feels so intense and it feels so real. And it's like you're caught in the middle of this tsunami and it's just wailing on you. It's just hitting you. And you may even beg your partner not to leave during this argument. You feel shattered. But the next morning, you wonder why it felt so intense. And again, this is part of BPD. This is part of that BPD family in the head strategy that tells you, here you are, this is going to be this way forever. You're going to be stuck in here. Oh my God, oh my God. It's almost like it's dug this hole, like this really hole, this hole in the earth, right? That's almost perfect just for you. And you fit into it. And then you're going to be there forever. But BPD family in the head, they're putting dirt on you. They're dumping dirt on you in this hole that's built just for you, and you're never going to get out. What are you going to do? What are you going to... I don't know about you, but that makes me a little anxious. And it's understandable why you would feel that way, feeling trapped in those moments. And that emotional amnesia, it really kind of pulls you out of your ability to catch those moments, manage those moments. Now, why does BPD cause this? Well, it's often related to mood-dependent memories and how BPD amplifies it. Emotional states in individuals with BPD tends to be so intense, but it changes so fast, like lightning fast. It's hard to store and access them later. So it feels like your emotions and your emotional reactions go from moment to moment to moment to moment. And that's why when I'm working with partners of individuals who have BPD, they're often saying, he or she, like they're cool, everything's calm, and then everything just seems to explode. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about this mood-dependent memory and the amplification in those moments. So for example, At night, you're spiraling. You're thinking, I'm worthless. I know they hate me. And there's this partner right there, and you're looking at them, and you're like, I know they hate me. I know they're going to leave me. I know that they're just waiting to run out the door. But in the morning, you think, was I being dramatic? I don't feel that way. That's that emotional moment dependency that's added to and attributed and connected to that emotional amnesia. Now, there's a trap in there. And you've probably experienced it many times, or you've seen your partner go through it. And this is that you doubt your emotions. And in doubting the emotions, you attach that to shame and mistrust of yourself. And other people, even partners or family members, may call you inconsistent, but you're trying to survive these shifting realities in these moments that are so intense. And you're just trying to understand. So in many ways, you're gaslighting yourself. And in gaslighting yourself, you're forcing yourself or tricking yourself or distorting your perception into believing that these emotional inconsistencies and these emotional variable moments, that they are fact. And because those emotions feel so strong, they feel like facts. But remember, feelings aren't facts, even when they're super intense. You got to remember that. I actually have a video I'll put at the end on this one about feelings aren't facts. Look at that. But let me give you an example of this, right? So have you ever accused your partner of not caring, or you block them and then you feel a relief perhaps, but hours later there's panic and you try to fix it and you're unsure of what really happened? You engage in what's called rupture and repair. So you're driven by this perception. It could be self-gaslighting, emotional amnesia. So then you don't see it. And then you get really, really frustrated. And then, so you distort the relationship. You disrupt the relationship. You've ruptured the connection between you and that other individual. Then everything kind of chills, and then you can see things clearer. And now you're kind of like, I'm unsure of what really happened. And we see this a lot, because people that are just caught up in those moments, particularly those with BPD, but you also see it in folks with PTSD, severe anxiety, even severe depression sometimes, their memory gets impaired by those emotions. Makes total sense. So, but what happens is the relationship gets disrupted. You try to repair it, but your partner's like, what? They're confused. They're sort of unsure of themselves, like, what is going on? Now, I do have a relationship workbook coming out later this year, and that'll help to build some common ground. So you may want to check that out. And I'll put a picture right here so you can see what the cover looks like. I think it looks nice. But aside from that, what we got to do is we got to rebuild trust in your emotional truth. And I'm going to say it again, because we got to rebuild trust in your emotional truth. And how can you do that? First, I would encourage you to do a daily emotional journaling. And I have a BPD journal if you're interested, and that might help you to really kind of stay on target as to how you're feeling, how you're reacting to the various 4 components that I actually address within this particular journal that you might find helpful. Also, you can use voice memos on your phone when you are overwhelmed. And talk to yourself, though, in a very calm way as best you can. And that can be really helpful, because leaving these memos, don't attack yourself. That's not the point. These memos aren't to encourage self-shame, self-attack, anything like that. What they are is to document the emotional instances that are going on, because once you get out of it, remember, that emotional amnesia kicks in and you're kind of like, well, I don't remember that. So, and this is not proof that you're broken, proof that you're this, that, all these negative stuff, that it's your fault, all this, that's not the point. The point is so that you are able to chronicle these various emotional states. And when you're in the thick of it, right, when everything's kind of spinning around, that you have some clarity and you can be like, oh yeah. And then what I want you to do is I want you to think what kicked it off. That can help you look at that core content. What is that core content that drives a lot of this emotional reactivity, this intense emotion that leads to that emotional amnesia, where then you're stuck with rupture and repair? Also, validation. Recognize and please say to yourself, we're going to put it right here on the screen so you can see it. Even if I don't feel it now, it was real then. And that's the truth. And remember, just because you feel it doesn't mean it's a fact. But you did have that emotional experience. It's not about pointing fingers at other people. Blame, fault is such a waste of time. That's not going to help you beat and control BPD. It's not. It's going to keep you stuck in a lot of hate and a lot of resentment. And that's what BPD and Family in the Head wants. Well, I don't want you to do that. I want you to grow beyond it. That's what the tools that I've created can really help you out. Also, using BPD management skills. What can you do to identify your core content? Identify those activating instances, and sometimes it's people. Sometimes there's certain people that just seem to kick off activations. Totally makes sense. So then we've got to recognize that, right? Doesn't mean you got to cut them out of your life. It means that we got to learn how to strategize it and deal with it. Okay, so it's important. Let me go over these, how you can rebuild that emotional trust in yourself, how you can recognize that emotional truth. Daily journaling, right? My journal, another journal can help. Voice memos can also help. No self-attack, don't do that. Then validating that it was real. Remember, here comes that statement again. Even if I don't feel it now, it was real then. And, it's important to recognize that a lot of people feel this way. A lot of people, remember, it wasn't just BPD. I already told you, PTSD, anxiety, depression, other disorders as well, other mental health conditions are related to this emotional amnesia. It's not just you. And it's not lying to yourself. It's not you're being manipulative or you're just exaggerating or you're needing attention. That's not what this is about. This is about reacting to a particular instance, and you're doing it in order to try to manage it. But the amnesia component is that because it was so intense, once things settle, you're kind of like, did that really happen? Because I don't feel it. It feels different. I get it. Emotional amnesia in BPD is about survival, not weakness. It's about clearing that massive intensity that goes along with BPD. Remember, your feelings matter, even the ones you can't hold on to once the situation is clear. Please check out some of my other videos. Thanks for listening and hanging out with me, and I will see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.